What's up, addicts? Today we're going to be going over the recap of the game between the Seattle Dragons and the Houston Roughnecks, going over all the fantasy players in this one and using that analysis to help us go forward. Anyway, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Let's get right into it. Alright guys, so probably one of the more fun games in the entire XFL season thus far. Houston wins this one 32-23. Pretty good game overall. On the Dragons side, we saw BJ Daniels continue to give this offense way more life than we ever saw with Brandon Silvers. Still a little bit lacking in the downfield accuracy. Hopefully that's something that he can improve on, but definitely gives them a entirely different feel to this offense. They were playing a lot of hurry up, a lot of no huddle, and it was really fun to see. It made for a really interesting game. Seattle's defense definitely played pretty strong in this one. Made Philip Walker look human for the first half, but they weren't able to hold for the entire game, and Philip Walker came back to dominate near the end. Now, this game did end in controversy, as you can see if you watch the replay of this game. Near the end of the game, Philip Walker kneeled down with about 3 seconds to go, which should have turned the ball over, given it back to Seattle, give them one more chance to score a touchdown with 3 seconds to go on, I believe it was Houston's 23, so pretty close to the end zone there. Definitely a disappointing way for this exciting game to end. Looks like the XFL had already addressed this issue and had let go of the supervising official who basically let the game end even though everyone was still there. So interesting to see how the XFL handles situations like this. Glad that they're actually at least addressing it, but overall disappointing for Seattle fans. This game was one of the better ones, and to have it end that way is kind of disappointing. But anyway, we're here for fantasy analysis, so let's look at the stats in this one and break it down. All right, so beginning with the Seattle Dragons, BJ Daniels, 14 of 22, 114 yards, no touchdowns through the air, no interceptions, did have a fumble on the day. Also 10 carries for 30 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Both of their touchdowns with BJ Daniels were the same play. Looks like they're going to be running that one in the goal, like near the goal line often. Now, in terms of the running game in this one, definitely a bit of a disappointment for Kenneth Farrow. He did lead the day in carries, 10 carries, but only 30 yards. Trey Williams was the guy that ended up getting the touchdown in this one. He just kept pushing forward on a 17-yard run and found his way into the end zone. So if you started Trey Williams, you're happy about that. Jaquan Gardner continues to suck, 5 for 12. But no running backs with any receptions in this one, which is pretty surprising considering the type of quarterback that BJ Daniels is. You would expect there to be a bit more dump-off plays. We'll see how that if that trend continues going forward. Overall, I think this definitely depresses the value of everyone a bit, but Kenneth Farrow is still the guy that I like the most going forward. All right, looking at the receiving core here, Austin Proehl had the most targets and receptions on the day, 3 of 56, no touchdowns, did have a 2-point conversion. Alonzo Moore still getting a decent amount of targets, 4 targets, 3 receptions, 20 yards. But overall, pretty pathetic fantasy day. No one else here really to mention. Keenan Reynolds was technically the backup quarterback in this one because Brandon Silvers was ruled inactive before the game started, so they didn't use him nearly as much. Definitely hurt his fantasy day. Would have been nice to have that information more than 5 minutes before kickoff. Only had 1 catch for 4 yards on the day. And then as we had continued to see in this offense, we have 4 tight ends, all catching a single pass for under 10 yards. No tight end work to speak of here for Seattle. Like I said, the defense played pretty well, forced 3 turnovers from Philip Walker, so definite improvement for this team. Like their prospects going forward, but it really sucks now that they're down 1-4. They're going to have to really fight hard if they want to try to get that second playoff spot. All right, jumping over to the Houston Roughnecks, but before we do that, if you guys are actually interested in watching the entirety of this game but don't have 3 hours to do so, I've actually condensed the entire game down below 30 minutes for you, cut out all the fluff, all the dead time between plays, commercial breaks, everything like that. If you want to check that out, click the link in the description or the box above me, and you can see that in its entirety. Anyway, let's get to Houston. Beginning with Philip Walker, 27 of 38 on the day, 351 total yards, 71% completion rating. Total difference between the first and second half here. He started the game out pretty slow, was missing a few passes. In the third quarter, he had a really bad interception. The second one was definitely a contested catch that I'll blame him for, but not nearly as bad as the first one that almost turned into a pick six. And they also had a fumble on the day where he just got tackled behind the line of scrimmage, didn't really see the defender coming. So definitely some more mistakes from Philip Walker, but he didn't allow it to affect his game at all, especially not towards the end of the game. Total dominance here from Philip Walker, and is pretty much solidifying himself as the MVP as some of the other guys around him begin to taper off a little bit. Running backs on the day, Andre Williams got a lot more work in this one than he normally does, 10 carries for 54 yards. A little bit concerning for James Butler owners, but not so much the goal line work. James Butler here with 12 carries and 52 yards. Also had 2 touchdowns on the day. Could have easily had a third one near the end of the game. He also had 3 receptions for 17 yards, so Butler continues to be the predominant running back here, but Andre Williams is definitely going to jump into that handcuff slot. He's looking good enough to take over if for some reason Butler were to get hurt. All right, looking at the receivers in this game, the big 4 between Phillips, Holly, Lewis, and Mobley in this one. With Sammy Coates out, Mobley definitely stepped up. 6 catches on 9 targets for 95 yards. Look for that trend to continue a bit. He is actually catching his balls, unlike Sammy Coates, so even when Sammy Coates gets back, they might continue to use Sam Mobley in this role. Cam Phillips getting it done again after a depressing week last week. 13 targets, 10 receptions for 122 yards, and 2 scores. Still the most valuable fantasy player in the entire XFL. Nick Holla getting it done, 4 catches on 5 targets for 72 yards and a touchdown, including a 50-yard catch and run. It was a beautiful pass, beautiful catch, beautiful fake out. That was a great play. And then Khalil Lewis, a bit of a disappointment on the day. 3 catches for 31 yards, and he had a touchdown he could have had a touchdown, but he dropped it. Got tipped out of his hands just at the last second, so could have bailed you out, but ended up with a pretty disappointing day. Overall, like we've said before, that's the kind of thing that we're expecting to see from this offense week by week. You're not going to really know who's going to end up being the second and third receivers because they're going to go with whoever has the best matchup. So using the stats that we input into our website, it's going to be really helpful in trying to determine who are the best receivers to start and sit this week. This week we recommended Cam Phillips and Nick Holley, and also threw Sam Mobley there as a flyer. But Khalil Lewis definitely a bit more of a disappointment than what he has been. So we'll continue monitoring that going forward. Defense played okay in this one. Forced a turnover near the end of the game. That's what they needed to do. But still, very much so a bend but don't break defense. Giving up a lot of points here. Alright guys, so that was pretty much it. Thank you again for watching. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Hit that like button for more content about the XFL. And we'll be posting NFL fantasy stuff here pretty soon as we get into free agency. Also check my website, fantasyaddictionnetwork.com. Everything you need to manage your fantasy league in the XFL is there for you guys. Updating stats today, so make sure you check that out. Anyway, we will see you guys in the next video.